Okay, well, sorry for the audio dub, but I had to re-record this because I was playing music in the background that was copyrighted. So, okay, I figured I'd clean up the Southbend. I noticed a lot of gunk every time I clean off the cross slide with alcohol. It kept dripping with goop, brown goop back on the ways. Well, there's only one place it would have come from, and that's underneath the saddle here. So, inspired by Mr. Pete, I removed the saddle for the first time since I've owned the lathe. He has a series of videos showing the Logan lathe apart for and the reassembly. So I figured it would be a good time to take the Junior apart. It's a little simpler than his Logan. There's no automatic cross feed, and there's no keyway and worm gear for longitudinal feed to contend with. All I have is the pinion gear. And that drives the saddle using the rack gear. Everything seems to be running smooth. Yeah. See, so with nothing noticeably bent. I do have a question. If anyone knows why I have this gear on the front of the hand wheel, is that part of a power cross feed, or I'm not sure. So, but it was never bored out. There are no bosses for any kind of mechanism there. I just don't understand exactly what that is. I do need to clean the oil galleys here for the half nuts. Overall, it's in pretty good shape. You know, there's something was trying to make a nest, it looks like, down here in the I don't know, some kind of cocoon. But there's no chips in here. I mean, it's just yeah, one chip. I don't have air in the shop, so I'm not blowing things around. You can see the one little piece up there on the ways. That's the goop that was trapped underneath the saddle. It looks like steel wool, basically. But so I'll be taking this all apart and cleaning it out, putting new felts in. You can see the half nut engagement there. I've got to clean out that galley's all plugged up. I mean, there was no oil getting through the lead screw from there. It was like grease and old oil and stuff. So yeah, all that'll be taken apart. I mean, it works, it's functional now, so it just needs to be cleaned. So now the underside of the saddle, that's a different story. We've got years of brass chips, oil, maybe some bacon fat, who knows. But the putty knife has become my best friend here. The best way to find an old tool is covered in grease, so I'm not unhappy, and the finished surfaces look to be flat and relatively unscored. That is some nasty, nasty stuff. It's just years of built-up crud. I mean, that's why I'm using the putty knife. You're not getting that off with a toothbrush or anything. But I got to stay away from these surfaces. The way surfaces, these are scraped surfaces that ride on the bed, and yeah, I don't want to touch those with a putty knife. So I am gonna take off the wipers so you can see those, and they're shot. I mean, it's just one screw. There's a little brass cover on there, brass or copper, and these felts have hardened up to, it's not felt anymore. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's crispy. So yeah, they're not quite cracking, but that's nasty. So I'm going to replace all the felts. I just got some felt from the hardware stores, nothing special, but yep, and I'll be cleaning and polishing those up. Any of the copper and brass bits I'm going to put into an acid bath, and that will hopefully etch it. Okay, so Yeah, that's the saddle. It's all its nasty glory. Okay, so now I also, well, sorry about the camera work here, but I found out that the bed casting is 9/4 of 26. So even though WS Wells has on their website the serial number, they don't have my serial number, but they have the range close to it. Yep, that's the gunk on there that was trapped underneath the saddle. So not a lot, but I didn't want to leave that there. Couldn't keep the lathe clean with it. So yeah, he's got this lathe at about 1927, but and that may be possible. The bed was cast in 26, and they assembled it in 27. You can see a few gouges, maybe some hacksaw marks in the bed. There's another one on the back side, but overall they feel pretty smooth. There's right there, or it looks like somebody came through it with a hacksaw. Maybe. I don't know. Hard to tell exactly how it was damaged. I mean, this thing's almost 100 years old now. We're closing in on 90 years old. My original intent when I started pulling this off is I want to create a taper attachment for it. But here's a good look at the going down the ways and any kind of scratches or non-scratches that you see there. They're really in pretty good shape. There's no ridges. It shouldn't be flat like that. You should see flaking. From reading Ed Connolly's book, by the time you get down to a shiny surface and you've worn away all the flaking, then you're accelerating the wear on the machine. So I'm not going to tackle scraping the ways. That's just too big. I don't have the equipment to do that right now. I don't have the jigs and whatnot for alignment. So right now I'm just going to work on cleaning the saddle up. Okay, you can see here, this is where a power crossfeed would be set up. I guess, I mean, you can see it's milled out, but I don't know, is that enough room for, would the gear just be the size of the lead screw there? I'm not sure. You know, it'd be nice to have power crossfeed, but like I said, I don't have that on the saddle. The bosses are not there, and I'm not going to scrape these surfaces either. But you can see it's just covered in goo. So we're going to clean it all up. This is the first time I've really been into this thing. I figured from the get-go that I would just use the machine and clean it in stages. And so as I used it, I would slowly repair it to get it back to, it's not going to be a showpiece, a restored showpiece. This is a working lathe. So you can see the surfaces there. They're smooth, and I'm not going to scrape those either. Like I said, I don't have the alignment stuff to deal with dovetails right now, so I only have a surface plate. And actually I didn't intend to scrape this. I'm narrating this now, but really I just wanted to take it apart and clean it. But in reassembly, I touched one of the pieces to the surface plate and checked it for squareness, and it was far out of square. So, alright, so here's the back clamp that goes on the saddle. It's only 3 bolts. That's all it took to get the saddle off, was these 3 bolts. Take that back clamp off, and then take the 2 bolts off the end so that I could loosen the half nuts off the end of the lead screw. You can see this is where you take out the lead screw nut on the compound. You've got to loosen the gibs and take that off and jiggle it back and forth, and then the compound will come loose. So, and I'll show you the reassembly of everything here. I'm not going to exactly show you the disassembly. I didn't get it all on camera, but I will show you the reassembly. So, yep. Okay, now I'm going to stone the ways. I'm using a tip from John, aka Double Boost, John Mills, and I'm employing toilet paper, and I'm using alcohol here just for the preparation for cleanup, and we're basically using a white glove test. Toilet paper works great. You know, you're not going to I don't know, I feel bad when I'm using a ton of paper towels all the time in the shop trying to clean this stuff up. You use rags, but the rags get oily really fast, so the toilet paper, I don't feel bad about throwing away a little piece of toilet paper after I've gotten it greasy. So, alright, I'm just cleaning all the grease off of this so it doesn't load up my stone. Like I said, we're using a white glove test here. I'm just going to keep wiping it down until I don't see oil coming off. So, yeah, there's plenty there. So we're going to continue on and clean the whole thing up. And I'm going to basically, when I stone, I'm just going to apply light, even pressure. I'm just trying to knock the burrs off here. I'm not trying to change the surface at all. I'll start with the hard side, and then I'll go to the soft side, or the finer side. Basically all I'm doing is just bringing up the shine on here and knocking off any burrs from the years of use. You know, I'm sure they're not perfect. They didn't feel perfect when I was running my finger across them, so you know, this is nothing special, but you can see the flaking there, because this is where the like the steady rest or the tailstock would ride on that inner flat in the inner V-way, so you can still see the original flaking on there, and that's essentially what I'm doing, is just bringing off the oxidation and bringing that pattern back up. And the tailstock never goes up here toward that far up next to the headstock, so it doesn't hurt to go, you know, take a few extra passes there. So just, you know, that's pretty much it. I'm pretty much almost done. Yeah, okay. That's all I'm gonna do. Maybe I'll touch it twice with the see, I'll go ahead and clean this off, and that's basically all I'm gonna do with the rest of the V-ways. I'm just gonna touch them with a stone, just like this, basically just brushing it off and cleaning it up. We'll get all that grinding grit off of there, because we don't want any of that stuff back on the lathe when we go to reassemble it. It's just going to act like lapping compound, and it'll wear the parts in and make valleys where I use the lathe the most, and we don't want any of that stuff around, so we're just going to keep it really clean. I'll go across it a couple times with a finer grit. You can see, I mean, I haven't even gotten all the way down. There's still a hollow in the middle there where I'm not even taking the oxidation off. So, alright. Yeah. Alright, and that's it. Just a few passes to polish it. That's really all I'm doing here, is polishing it and knocking the burrs off. So, said that enough. We'll get to it. I think I'm going to speed this up a little bit and do the rest. But, yeah. Just going to make sure that we get it thoroughly clean after we do all this stuff, because we don't want any of this grit in these precision surfaces. That's good. Now I just got to clean that whole saddle assembly out.